ABC wishes to advise viewers that this program contains art.
Make you change the way you think about yourself.
How?
Oh yeah, tuning.
No, I wouldn't call it a work of art.
No?
I'd just call it a functional item.
I reckon hot pink's the only answer.
It's already a work of art because it's not plugged into it's removed from its function.
You know, give it some meaning about what the telephone is in our society.
What could you do to make it a work of art if one was given the task?
Oh.
Just leave it.
Like if I got you to sign it, would that make it a work of art? Put it in a frame?
Only if I got somebody famous to sign it.
Somebody famous, so like if Picasso signed it, that you think that would make it a work of art, yeah?
No, he's dead.
I suppose you'd put a few flowers and all that paraphernalia.
You would need to be validated.
I think, you know, it's sort of natural tones.
Natural
I think
kind of
definitely,
tone.
yeah.
Art on wall.
Oh, well, a stick that stems in there and...
Put it on a pedestal about that wide with a bit of red velvet underneath it.
What would that change?
Oh, it'd make an ordinary humdrum object into something that's more beautiful, I suppose.
And art is a very beautiful thing, no?
Yes, that's right.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. I'll go find some flowers. Ciao.
The number you have called is not connected. Please check the number before calling again.
Is it art? It's a shame that touch phones don't have a little handy spot to put a bunch of flowers in. I consider that to be a major design fault. Well, in this recession and all this talk of gloom and doom and people generally having a fairly bad time of it, it's nice to know that the arts industry is enjoying a period of growth. At this point in time, there are 74,000 people employed in the arts industry across Australia, and the annual turnover is $6.2 billion. And what I want to know is, how's Tassie cashing in on it?
For a small town like this, attracting new people and big businesses can be a difficult thing. However, with an injection of arts and crafts, the slowly spreading ghost town syndrome can be stopped.
It's a nice, sleepy little town. We don't seem to have a lot of employment about. I've got a lot of bright ideas, but some of the older customers I've got don't agree. I'm going to have topless butchers.
But a small community, you must have that go.
What can art do for a community? Well, perhaps it can save it from the brink of obscurity. I'm here in Sheffield, which was once a sleepy little hollow, but now a thriving tourist mecca. The secret? Murals. And how did they do it? Money, art, and community support. So does your business rely on your mural, do you think?
It's a big factor in drawing people to the restaurant. We have the product, let's get together and promote it as best we can and look after the tourist.
It was really one of those places you could fire a shotgun up the main street and not hit anything.
If murals hadn't come to the town, it probably would have died, got quieter. The businesses and that would have probably went under.
Do you think people have changed since the murals have gone up?
Yes, the locals definitely have changed. The first mural that I painted, it was a very strange experience because I was just there with people walking past, scared of me, I guess, scared of what I was doing, scared of murals coming to town. And now you feel much more sure that they do want them in the town, and it has exposed another area of art to them that they would never have experienced before, and they've seen the benefits to the town.
Well, Sheffield seems to be a bit of a success story. And let's go and have a look at other communities that have adopted different types of roadside art. I'm here to talk to Helmut Schwabe, who is one of the chief collaborators on Ulverston's New Art Wave.
We appreciate art in so many different ways where we don't recognise it as art. Here it's very easily recognised that it has got something to do with art, but we don't recognise it, by example, when it's advertising or something like that.
The Boat Harbour Lookout is part of the Northwest Sense of Place project, and I'm here to talk to Sandra Halfacre, who was one of the initiators.
We were looking at ways of working with local government and incorporating arts projects into local government development and working with the community at the same time.
What are some of the reactions you get from people about these works?
Well, we've had sort of two extreme reactions. People either really hate it or they really like it. I think they attract tourists and they get local people out having a look and travelling and buying things.
Everybody had a lot of thoughts about what they should have done with the money, and it looked really out of place when they first put it up.
I don't think any of the businesses in this particular area benefit greatly from it.
A huge bluestone lizard in the middle of the bush, just above Devonport. I want to know why it's here.
We want this to be a lookout feature so that it will attract people up to the area. The main objective is to protect and preserve the bush and try to prevent it from being developed.
Well, there are some interesting things happening out there at the moment, and it seems that art's finally coming out of the galleries. Some of it's a touch controversial, but hey, you got a problem with that?
Continuing saga. The Hobart Art Prize is once again in full bloom. To keep you updated so far, last year the judges, in their infinite wisdom, didn't give this public award to anyone because they deemed the standard wasn't good enough. This year they've decided not to let history repeat itself and have made it a closed affair.
I think that's really bad, actually. I think all art should be given a fair go. I think the judges have let the artists down. Most judges probably don't even do art.
They're just making their own small opinion on what it's about, rather than just having an open mind.
If the exhibits didn't meet those criteria, well, maybe it was fair enough not to award the prize. If they're given something to judge, then they have to judge it and come up with a winner.
The ones that need encouragement are the ones that haven't had a chance and haven't been exhibited. Most of the time, through competitions, that's the only way the public really sees art, especially what students are doing anyway.
No matter if you play football, what standard you play, everyone should be able to play. So that's what I think they should do the same in art.
Excellent. More prizes for everyone, I say. And someone who's won more than her fair share of prizes is Tasmanian painter Helen Hopcroft. She's currently studying her master's degree at the Royal College of Art in London.
Drafted into it. My grandfather was a painter. He was a very naive painter. He used to paint chickens and nudes. My grandmother was a very traditional type painter. My mother does.
She would do some wonderful things even at a very young age, even with things like farm animal sets of things that children play with, but she would put them in such a relationship that if I came along and accidentally sort of knocked them over, I could never get them so that the animal looked like they were talking to each other again.
In the school here, out of school, around the place. She was all the time thinking in artistic terms.
We went to the art school, as we regularly do, to look at new work, and Helen's was the most outstanding work there. It was very, very strong.
It was obvious I couldn't really pin her down to the strict timetable. You'd come in sometimes, and Helen would be in there at all strange sort of times. And there would be mad bursts. It was really intense.
Literally in about half an hour, nearly all the major drawings are sold. A couple of the major paintings. They've gone as far as Germany. We've sold them to Japanese people. We had a situation where our museum unfortunately couldn't come to the opening, that had missed out on all the work, 8 people's names on the list. Please ring us immediately when any work becomes available.
Did she tell you that every year I buy her a one-way ticket out of the country? She says it says something about our relationship.
Helen, it all started here at the art school in Hobart. What significance does this couch have for you?
Well, it's lovely, isn't it? It's not particularly significant as far as a piece of furniture goes. We used to just sit here a lot and talk, or it's a good place to sleep if you've got a hangover.
When was the first moment when you realised that you wanted to pursue a career in the arts? Was there a moment when you went, oh, you know, like a blinding flash of light from above or anything?
Well, I always drew and painted since I was really small. But anyhow, I went to art school because I couldn't think of anything else to do.
Right.
And did nothing in my first year because I started when I was 17, and you don't do anything when you're 17.
No.
You just run around going, ah! And then I was working as a kitchen hand at the Truna Hotel. I suddenly realised, you know, one day in between the dishes and the cabbages, that, you know, what was I doing this for? I knew what I loved doing, and I may as well get paid for it.
This is a great environment to have been working in. How do you find coming back here now and looking at it? Do you have fond memories of it?
Yeah, I suddenly appreciate the studio. It's huge and it's got a beautiful view.
It's sort of a classic artist studio, really, isn't it?
Yeah, have a look at these
huge
windows.
Wow, what a view!
It's good, isn't it?
Awe-inspiring. That's lovely.
Yeah.
So has it changed much since you've been here?
This studio is a lot cleaner. I used to have a lot more junk around.
Yeah, you're a bit of a messy artist, aren't you?
Yeah, unfortunately.
She was a tremendous influence on the other students in the place. For example, in the life class, she was a real asset. These new students would be petrified and working in those little marks in the corner, and Helen would come in and sprawl this great sheet of paper out on the floor and start crawling all over it with this black charcoal, absolutely being smothered herself. And out of this would come the most brilliant images. And it was just mind-boggling to these new students. And I saw her as a real asset in teaching. I mean, she was much more effective than I was.
Helen, how would you describe your work?
I'd probably describe it as an attempt to represent how I see life, really. That sounds really pretentious, but I'm an artist, so I'm allowed to say that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, this one's called I Count Boys. A lot of the work's about sexuality and relationships and that sort of stuff. It's based on the 5 horses of the apocalypse. And I decided that I'd add another horse, and I called that horse Boredom, because I reckon that was the most devastating influence on human life. This is when I was fairly anti-Tasmania.
Right.
I've come to appreciate it since.
So when you see these slides, are you reminded of, you know, particular events in your life at that time?
Well, it does, in a way. I mean, what's that quote, the writer who said, God only knows what it means now? How about his books? I mean, I feel a bit like that. In one way, they're a lot clearer about what I was on about at the time, because I work fairly instinctively.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they're just paintings now, and as such, they're just a two-dimensional surface. And this one's called Anatomy of a Dying Relationship. That's when I was thumping a boyfriend.
Right.
And I had a cold, so I painted my lungs in as well.
Oh, good. Yes, your lungs look particularly red
inflamed.
and don't they?
I had this idea that the only time people were honest with each other was when they were breaking up. I don't really like talking about art very much because I don't see the point most of the time.
Right.
I mean, you can look at things and I think the most valid response is what you feel and think about them.
Pigs' bladders and art, what have they got in common? A lot. Artists used to carry around their paint in these big sloppy pig's bladders. However, with the introduction of these paint tubes, artists became more mobile. They weren't chained to the studio, they got out, they ran, they skipped, they saw, and they painted. What did they paint? French Impressionist painting, thanks to Piggy.
I'm just wondering if you've ever seen a live strip show.
Yes.
No, I haven't.
No. Yes, a couple of times.
A live strip show?
No, can't say I have.
And I certainly didn't come here to see a live strip show.
Oh, turn 'em off! Daily Grind tells the story of 2 strippers, Louie and Roxy, working the X-rated cinema scene. The false glamour of this harsh industry is revealed through humour and the special relationship forged between the two women.
Hello. You must be the new girl.
Yeah.
All striptease artists have stage names.
Riding on the highway.
They're going to eat you alive.
Looking for a show.
The three of us went to strip clubs and interviewed strippers.
Well, what about food swans?
Having done a season in Melbourne and now one in Hobart, have you found much difference in the audience responses from one state to another?
Well, it's been really interesting in the Hobart audiences. We've had a lot of mixed response.
I don't actually expect to be overly challenged by this play.
I've heard that it's very confronting, the material. I've just been dragged along and I heard that she starts it with a strip. I've heard a lot about prostitution, but I'd like to see a very real side of it. There's a bit of a film and then she takes her clothes right off, and I'm very excited by that prospect.
So what's one of the strongest audience responses you've had?
Oh, well, I think varying from the stunned mullet sort of, oh my God, but we've also had some people who actually thought that they'd come to see a strip show. And, and when they came in drinking six-packs and they were passing them along the front row. I mean, don't you ever think about who's out there?
How do you, as performers, protect yourself?
Well, you're very vulnerable because of the nature of the show.
Just me for all those men.
We get quite close to the audience. If they were acting like real punters, they were close enough to touch, which was the scary thing. Nervous?
A bit.
Not too late to pack your bag, walk out the door and forget the whole thing.
No, I need the money.
Stripping will make you change the way you think about yourself.
Well, how?
Just be different, that's all. I think particularly when you're dealing with such a sensitive subject or a heavy subject, it would be really easy to be mallet bashing, you people are mongrels and how can you let this go on? And I think with humour, you accept the situation and you learn a lot about it, but you can laugh at it.
Are you in pain?
We came on stage for our bow and I was just looking straight ahead and I saw this woman who was looking at me, and as soon as we made eye contact, she went...
And at work, the punters want more than I can give.
While you were on, the boss came down.
Mein Führer, what did he want? I can't make any of them happy.
Work hot or go?
Can't give them what they want. Surprise! What did you think stripping's all about anyway?
Overall, at the end, I felt pretty drained and, saddened by it all.
I thought it was a difficult subject to make interesting on stage, and the playwright achieved that.
Yeah, it was great. How relevant do you think a show like this is in a community like Hobart?
Well, I think basically it's relevant everywhere where there are sort of sexual desires.
Never really thought about strippers as being real people before. I was kind of there watching the film as a voyeur and feeling very voyeuristic. And then she walked on and she just was in the light and started talking straight to us, and I was denied the ability to voyeur anymore.
Well, I think I spent the whole thing with tears down my cheeks. I was either laughing or crying, one or the other.
Daily Grind, produced by Performing Lines, is an example of a work that can be created in one city and translate perfectly well to a windy one somewhere else. Indeed, it's on tour around the country till November.
If you have a penchant for wearing a codpiece and spouting a lot of then this workshop is designed for you.
Shakespearean actor John Bell will be holding a 10-day
workshop.
So find out if Lady Macbeth ever got
rid of that
spot.
Curiosity did kill the cat, but this exhibition won't.
Come and take a
peek at adornments, a slightly controversial
exhibition of little things in little black boxes.
It's coming to a town
near you.
Ever wanted to see a gaggle of 8 people in a
paddock?
Well, here's your chance to listen to the Academy
of St Martin in the Field Octet.
Bliss out to the sounds of this world-renowned
classical act.
Tasmanian art and
pottery exhibition is on again in Burnie.
If you consider yourself a half-decent
artist, the Burnie Art Gallery is
still taking interest.
But if creating artwork is
not your cup of tea,
then it's worth going just to buy Chrissy presents.
Feel a writer's block coming on?
Maybe the Salamanca Writers' Weekend is the inspiration you need.
For 3 days, top Australian writers will be descending on Salamanca
in an attempt to write down any clues they have on
Sam and Rusty's
whereabouts.
For The catchphrase of the 90s is
multiculturalism.
Now get a taste of what this means in a street party
in Launceston. Stalls from Asia,
United Kingdom, the Mediterranean and
Northern Europe
will have their delicacies on display
for you to be tempted by.
The sound of chainsaws in Tasmania's native forests is hardly music to the ears of conservationists. But you know, they're not always dealing with destruction. After the loggers move through, there's a lot of beautiful timber left behind, and it can be salvaged.
We want to find a traditional sound that represents the traditional West African drum, the djembe, and to have people recognise them as that, and also find that they can be used for their own expression in a contemporary Australian society. Oh, it's a way of showing people what beauty there is in the trees. We feel rather sad by the destruction of the forests. The chainsaws are pretty lethal if you don't understand them, and then if you do, then you can control them quite delicately.
Well, word about the unique Tasmanian sound is now out. More musicians are setting aside the traditional African instruments and coming here to check out the alternative Tasmanian drums.
Yeah, this 15-inch, do you like the
That's the depth of the sound. What skin are you using, on them? Yeah, what are they?
Mostly we use calf skin.
This one you need just something which can go from here
to
go like in.
Yeah.
Remember that go
For
tuning in the fire.
They use the fire to heat up their drum just before they play, so that it's got as much tension as they can get. We use calf skin in that it's locally very available. We find with our climate it's a little bit more resilient with the dampness in it and coolness of our climate. My partner Dan had been over in Switzerland and seen some djembe. With that and a combination of finding some photos on record covers, we were able to discover and copy and remember enough to get these knots, which is really a very simple single knot repeated many times in order to get an even tension on these upright ropes, which will give the high tension that you need for the djembe. We need to shave the surface in order to get that rich tinny sound on the rim.
Marcus, why is your work with drums developed into vases?
Well, the hollow wooden vase form came from the hollow drum. The concept of the vase has worked well as a canvas for my graphic ideas, which I've had ticking over in the back of my mind since I began wood carving. With these ideas I've been able to explore the spirit of the hollow tree.
Is it essential to actually live in the bush to create something from it?
I think so, yes. For me, I need that, and it's almost obsessive in that you can't be in town very often because it draws you, and you end up not respecting the natural world. So, you can lose a connection with society. My partner Dan, well, he's at the moment, he's in Zimbabwe and travelling to West Africa soon to learn a little bit more from the masters themselves, people who have made djembe for centuries and the inheritors of the culture. Even as a maker, I think that the power that it has is to be respected.
I'd never thought of a chainsaw as being a creative tool before, but then again, I'd never thought of a pub as having a creative environment either. But in Launceston, there's one that's fairly jumping with creativity.
We're here outside Lloyd's Hotel in Launceston, which is the birthplace of one of Australia's newest forms of poetry, pub poetry. And this is fast, it's brash, and it's very, very loud. We're going to go inside and see some of the punters and some of the poets. This cup seems to attract a lot of controversy. Is that designed that way?
Well, I think it just happens. I mean, people are so keen to win.
This is a short story called A Hole in Her Jumper. As she sat down to her cup of tea, her elbow was cold.
So this started here and was copied in Melbourne and in the Harold Park Hotel in Sydney, and also it's been copied in London and America.
Well, the call has just gone out for people to enter the Poetry Cup. And in about 10 minutes, that stage behind me is going to be crammed with poets. And the rules for this contest are simple. You have 1 minute and 1 minute only. And the person who wins is the person who draws the loudest reaction from the audience. And that can be a good reaction or a bad reaction.
This is a poem that rhymes. It's called Lorraine. He drank his coffee in a mug until he met Lorraine. Thought meds were mind-expanding drugs until he met Lorraine.
Then for a thrill, let a snarl as the fatties spin. Fishtail up the George Street hill. Lay down rubber on asphalt till the streets are paved with it. Drive to kill.
Now, how do you feel about the judging process? Does it discourage, like, really hardcore, serious poets?
Oh yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. They get, you know, everyone gets their chance, and they get their chance at another time, and this is the time for fun, I think.
It just gets the adrenaline going, and the audience picks up on the adrenaline.
We did have one poem that consisted of 59.5 seconds of silence one year.
Now, tell me about this Chinese guy that won a few years ago.
Liu Yongbing, yes. Well, there was a bit of controversy about that one because we ended up giving him the benefit of the doubt because somebody said it was his laundry list, somebody else said it was one of the thoughts of Mao Zedong, and nobody could prove anything one way or the other because there wasn't any other Mandarin-speaking person in the room.
The English language doesn't allow as much room for imaginative creativity as Irish does, so I had to work a lot harder on the English.
I'm a poet, straight and normal. Everything I do is formal. But tonight's a different story. Give me death or give me glory. Nothing could contain his anger, and you told us of this drinking wine as waves shattered glass on the rocks below at the Kabuki by the sea.
And the winner is Sydney.
I was once a chocolate frog in a torn wrapper.
The winner is Lynn Reed.
Poem spoken by a giraffe. Blotched and reticulated, we cannot swim at all. Though with one kick, a lion will forestall.
Congratulations, Lynn. Can you say something for us in giraffe speak?
Certainly.
It was certainly unusual, and it's the unusual that gets it, I think.
It seems to me that it's in the performance rather than the substance.
I'm a giraffe sympathiser.
It's fantastic that the last 3 winners have been women. It's the hat-trick of women.
Next week. Until then, bye.